So welcome back everybody, it's Kim from Inside My Money and we're going to talk about Homebank and budgets today. A couple of you have asked how we do budgets in Homebank, so I'm just going to show you how to do that and we're going to focus on doing one for our fictional characters Abby and Sam. So what we do first is we're going to go back up into reports, and this is a report I didn't show you. I showed you the report, but I didn't show you this aspect of it last time, and that's because I tend to look at it more when I'm looking at a budget, but we can also do that at any time, and it's quite handy to know. So we go up into statistics. I'll bring it across onto the screen here, and you can see that at the moment we've got it as we saw before, which is in total category. We can do income and expense for all dates. If you click on time, then you can see that it splits those expenses out per category. So you can see when the money actually went out each month. Why this is good is because you can see for things like insurance, where Abby and Sam were spending about $250 a month, but in June they had a bigger expense for their insurance, and that was the home and renters insurance. So this is useful because when we do our budget, for the majority of things, we're going to use the averages to say on average, we spend this amount of money on this item. But with things like insurance, with some of your other maybe household expenses, or with rates, they all tend to come in at different times of the year. And they can be quite large amounts of money. Particularly insurance could be. So you want to see when those peaks and troughs are and put in those different amounts so that when you look forward and say, okay, what do I have to allow for in the future? You know that this money's coming up and you can decide whether you could afford to pay it in one hit or whether you need to spread the payments out over a period of time. And it just gives you a bit more control over what's happening. Or what we tend to do is we know that rates is going to be a large amount of money, so we put money aside every month into our own account, earning interest, and then we use that money to pay that big bill. We call it a big bills account, which is very innovative, but it works. And that means that we don't all of a sudden get this big amount going out of our normal account and going, well, goodness gracious me, there's all of our savings gone. So we tend to pre-save for some of these big bills. So what we do here is we keep this statistics report handy, and I tend to move it over onto a different screen, or you can print it out so that I can see my averages and I can see when some of the big hits are coming. Then we go up into manage, budget, and I'll start with income. Now remember, when we put things into the budget, all the income side will be a positive number. Anything that's an expense will need to be a negative number. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time doing a lot of work and you're not going to have any money, anything showing up that's correct. So what I've already put in there is their pay is $7,600 a month. But if it was different, say it was different hours, bonuses, incentives, things like that, you could also put different numbers down for each month. So over time, you will, as you put more information in Homebank, you will see how things fluctuate during a month, over a year. And so your pay might go up and down too. So you could put numbers into each of these different boxes if you wanted. But for now, we've just put in 7,600, which is approximately their income per month. Then we go into the expenses, and we're going to start with, I've already pre-populated, but I've put them in as positive numbers, which means I now need to go in and put them as negative numbers. So their bank charges, they had bank charges of $30 in June. So that looks to me like it's the credit card account fees. So we'll put that one in. We have car maintenance. Now that one went out in March, and well, actually that one went out in June. So they are obviously just doing a servicing on their cars, making sure it's a negative number every 6 months or so. So we'll put that down as $300 going out in June and $300 going out in December. And it's quite helpful to see that it goes out in December because Christmas is a really big time. And so you want to be able to make sure you can afford everything. So we want to see that big amount of money is going to go out then. Petrol is a monthly amount, so again, negative $400. They have donations, negative $15 a month. Clothing tends to fluctuate, but at the moment will allow for $140 a month. They have eating out. Again, it's allow for a monthly amount of about $300. But when we do the next session about budgets versus intentional spending, you can be a lot more specific as to what you want to spend in a month for this, and we'll show you how to do that. Entertainment is about $70 a month. Groceries is about $500 a month. It's just the two of them, so that's quite a low amount. These days it could be a bit higher than that, especially if you've got children. Then their renter's insurance. We've got here is $250 a month. Now, but what we've had to do is we've had to put in the fact that once a year, actually no, that is incorrect. So we will just clear that because their other insurances are part of that. So they have $250 a month in renter's insurance. So you can see you can very easily fix things. It's not all set in stone. And that $250 came out in June. Now they have other insurances, which we could put under life or health. So we'll put under life, and that was $250 a month. They have a loan, which they're paying off at $70 a month. They have personal care of about $91. You don't need to be too specific. I tend to round up to the nearest dollar or $10, depending. $190 for power and gas. Rates only go out, they've only got water rates, so they don't own their own home yet. But that tends to go out only 4 times a year. So we'll put in $30 every few months. Rent is $1,800 a month, and telephone is $120 a month. So that is their budget done. So if we close that, so now we're going to go up back into reports because our budget is done, and you're going to click on budget. You can click on the little book and look at some specific things, and you can also see it as a visual. Now this can be a lot easier, but what we're seeing is quite a lot of red, and that means they're going over in a lot of places. Now remember, we've only got 2 or 3 months worth of information in here. So as we go through month after month, you'll get a much better idea of what your average is. At the moment, the averages aren't going to be very representative of the actual reality of on average over 12 months. So you put more months in, you get a much stronger average. Because if we look at it back in the table, we can see that their car expenses, we only budgeted for $400, but their car expenses are closer to $1,000. So we might want to readjust, or just might want to adjust some of these budget numbers. So what we do here, one trick that you can fall into as well, is making sure that your dates that you choose for your statistics report is correct for when you're doing your budget. So before I had it all the way out to July, which meant that it was averaging it out over 3 months. We really only want to average it over the number of months we've got in already. So for groceries, the average is closer to $600, and car expenses are closer to $870. So let's go and show you how to make those adjustments. You go back into budget, you go into petrol, it's closer really to $800. So, well, $750, but we'll say $800. Groceries was $500, but we might say it's closer to $550. So they're just small tweaks. Don't get too pedantic about the budget. They are numbers, and there is going to be ups and downs, and you don't want to start judging yourself or beating yourself up about not meeting these budget numbers, because month to month it's going to be all over, it could be all over the place. It's just a general idea for how much you're spending on average, so that you can then look at it and say, well, okay, maybe we don't really want to be spending that much money on those things, and you can start to look at behaviours to change that. So back into the budget report, and now we can see that car expenses is more reasonable, especially when we look at what's happened and see that, yes, remember we had just petrol in that month, except we had some maintenance. So if we take 187 or a couple of $100 off that, then we can see that we are within cooey of our budget. So that is how you do the budget report. You can have the visual or you can have the table. It's entirely up to you. You can also print it out. So if you're wanting to kind of give yourself a bit of a boost and you can celebrate your successes, absolutely celebrate your successes, especially when you can see the amount of money that you're saving over time. So we spent more in May, but let's see what happened. Well, they spent more in May. Let's see what happens when we get to June. And we were within budget, much closer within budget in June. So things are moving in the right direction for Abby and Sam. You see they had some money left over for various expenses. So that's the budget reports and how to set a budget. I hope that was helpful. Again, if you've got any feedback or questions, please send them through. Happy to answer them, happy to do other videos. So we'll talk to you again soon.